Well, this afternoon, let's talk corruption because the Office of the Special Prosecutor is going after an unknown businessman that is alleged to have attempted bribing some members of the majority caucus in Parliament. In the Office of the Special Prosecutors have yearly statutory reports. Kisi Ejabing says his outfit is liaising with the Office of the Speaker of Parliament on that matter. Let's bring you highlights of the report as released by the Special Prosecutor. So here's the Special Prosecutor, first of all, giving an update on issues relating to bribery in connection with the Inter-Ministerial Mining Committee. He first of all points out that the office has concluded investigations into the allegations of the use of public office for profit against Charles Bisu during his tenure as Secretary to the erstwhile Inter-Ministerial Committee on Illegal Mining, arising from an investigative documentary titled Galamsey Fraud Part 1, published by the Tiger IPI team and investigative journalist Nasarim Yawanas. Now, the Special Prosecutor or an authorized officer will issue directives and further actions on this matter in due course. Beyond this as well, we know that the issue about the Northern Development Authority. The Special Prosecutor indicates that investigations into the suspected corruption and corruption-related offences in respect of a contract awarded by the Northern Development Authority consortium to consultancy services under the Infrastructure for Poverty Eradication Program, which is the IPEP, especially in respect of the quantum of contract sum. The Special Prosecutor indicates that he will issue some further directives on that one as well in due course. So no conclusive points on that one in terms of the NDA. But when it comes to Charles Bisu, upon a referral by the President of the Republic, a letter dated 14th of November 2022, the office commenced some investigations into the suspected corruption and corruption-related offences in respect of Charles Edubaying, a former Minister of State at the Ministry of Finance. So for him, of course, we know that his case is in connection with the Galamsey economy, as published by Tiger IPI investigative team, which obviously the Special Prosecutor is giving some further directives on. The allegations of an attempt to bribe members of Parliament. This is where we want to focus on this afternoon because the office has commenced investigations into the allegations, an attempt by what the Special Prosecutor is describing for the very first time now as an unnamed and, quote, a wealthy businessman to bribe some members of the majority caucus in Parliament. Now, the Office of the Special Prosecutor says it's triggering some level of liaison with the Office of the Speaker of Parliament in this regard, so we are able to come to some conclusion on this matter. So, will the Special Prosecutor be successful this time round? Let's broaden the conversation here on The Pulse. I want to bring in now Samir Bin, his Executive Director for the Parliamentary Network Africa. Also joining us is Niama Adi, a lawyer and one of the leading members of the Coalition for Social Justice, CSJ. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. I want to start off with you, Samir, because you know about the workings in Parliament. Elsewhere in the US, for instance, lobbying is allowed, where, of course, when you have a bill not favoring you or either pushing for a bill that will favor you, you have individuals who want to push their interest. But in this case, will it be a crime if we have a businessman, as he's been named or described as a wealthy one, of course, influencing our MPs? Will that amount to some level of a crime by our laws?
Good afternoon, Blessed. So let's note that the wording in the report of the Office of Special Prosecutor was quite specific. It says that it is investigating allegation of attempted bribery of members of Parliament. You know, and so this moves away from the conversation about whether it is lobbying and whether there's a kind of lobbying that is done in the United States of America or what have you. The allegations that were put across in the media by some members of Parliament, which were corroborated by the majority leader of Parliament, was that there was an attempted situation of somebody wanting to have members of Parliament change a decision that they are supposed to make. And these people who made the allegations described it as an attempted bribery, which has been captured in the report of the Office of the Special Prosecutor. it is worth noting that in the countries where there are, lobbying arrangements, like you try to describe it, those are clearly defined. There are rules that, govern these things. There are ways in which you can do and cannot do them. We don't have similar situation here. And for a country where members of parliament have the power to take some very major decisions, it is frightening to learn that wealthy businessmen will storm parliament and would want to bribe, allegedly, members of parliament from taking a particular decision in a way that catches the public attention. And then a few weeks later, we do not hear about it again. I think that this indication in the report of the Office of Special Prosecutor is very welcoming, and it would require that we all take up the mantle of following it through, to make sure that we are getting reports on how it is going, where it is going, so this does not become one of the cases that dies a natural death.
You are conversant with activities in Parliament. In fact, you're very much vexed in the issues that have transpired in previous sessions as well. This is not the first time we are hearing allegations of bribery. It dates way back to the times of PC Appiatse and the likes. Of course, many would say that would not be conclusive on this matter, and that it's just one of those cases that will go unpunished if indeed the acts occurred. What level of confidence do you have now in the special prosecutor?
Well, it's only natural for people not to have confidence in the process, in a country where these things have gone unpunished, as you have, indicated in the past. But remember that we got the act on the Office of Special Prosecutor passed in 2017. The office was set up, subsequently. And this is one of the cases that the Office of Special Prosecutor itself had put in its report as one that it intends to investigate. I think the difference between what has happened in the past and what must happen this time around is that we keep the vigilance. Members of parliament are not above board, but
right.
Individuals who think that they should have what it takes to influence unjustly or influence in a wrong way the decisions that gets taken in parliament, must also know that these things will not be countenanced. The special prosecutor in his report describes how they intend to make, matters of corruption a high risk, very expensive venture, so people would not, naturally be interested in venturing into. Of course, they know that elimination of it completely is an uphill task, but to make it high risk. And one of the ways of making some of these things high risk is for people to know that you cannot use bribery as a way to influence legislation, influence decision making in the august House of Parliament, or probably change the way that things are supposed to go in the Parliament of Ghana, just because you are a business person, you are wealthy, and you have interest. If we allow these things to fester, we are setting a very, very, very dangerous a situation for ourselves, especially for a parliament like ours, especially for all of the risk situations that comes with the kind of parliamentary settings and the kinds of election financing situation that we have in this country. If we allow some of these things to go, we risk having a parliament where people can influence it unjustly, and it will come to bite all of us citizens of this world.
Sami, I want you to hold on for us. Let's bring in Niamadi as well. He's with the Coalition for Social Justice, a lawyer as well. And there's this argument coming up that the special prosecutor may be limited by the Constitution, knowing that what's happening now involves members of Parliament. The Privileges Committee may be of course, claiming locus in this case, arguing that the special prosecutor has no right to come into this matter. What's your legal opinion on this matter?
Thank you very much. Our center is called Center for Social Justice, okay. CSJ.
Right.
So, yeah, Center for Social Justice. So let me lay the preamble for the discussion. Attempts to bribe exist in common law, okay? And in the model panels law, so that an attempt to bribe and completed bribery are an identical punishment. An attempt to bribe and completed bribery has an identical punishment. So for the fact that somebody has attempted to bribe members of parliament, I mean, it's grounded in law. I mean, you cannot say that the bribe was not completed. As I said, the model panel's code states clearly, and the common law also states clearly. So nobody can argue about that. And once it has come out, which again my colleague on the other side said that it was corroborated by the majority speaker, that a businessman has attempted to influence them. First of all, you want to look at the context, for which reason the Privileges Committee is saying that the special prosecutor cannot get in. What is the context? The context is that the majority has moved or are agitated for the Minister for Finance to be impeached. And that is where this attempted bribery came in, so that the move by the majority members of parliament would not succeed. So that is an attempted bribery. So for any committee in parliament to say that the special prosecutor cannot get in, I think that it is not proper for the democracy that we practice.
So your argument is, if I'm getting your argument right, your case is that the special prosecutor at this moment has every right to invite MPs over the attempts to bribe, and that's grounded in law.
Yes, that is very much so.
But he says the approach is choosing.
Has every right.
The approach is choosing now is to liaise with the office of the Speaker of Parliament.
Exactly so. And I mean, once the person who attempted to bribe can be identified,
right,
then the special prosecutor can go on. But first of all, you need witnesses, okay, so that it does not become a thing of a hearsay. That is why Parliament would have to work with the special prosecutor in order to get into the investigation. But if for any reason the institution, the very institution that has been mentioned in this attempted bribery, is refusing to work with the special prosecutor, then it is not very good for our democracy. It is not very good for the corruption that seems to have toppled, I mean, governments, and particularly in this previous government, because that does not sweep the issues under the carpet. The issue of Mr. Dubois, okay, which is also an act of crime, and I say so because it is grounded in law, that solicitation of a bribe also constitutes a crime. And in what we saw in the Tiger Eye video, there was a solicitation that if you give X amount of money, then I'll give you access to so and so. Okay, so for a government that has been tainted with a lot of corruption, and if you read the 14 or so page report of the special prosecutor, numerous corruptions have been mentioned there, all pointing to government. So I feel that for a government that wants to say that is so sacrosanct, for a government that wants to say that, yes, I'm not corrupt, that government must be willing and able to ably support the special prosecutor to get to the bottom of this matter.
Well, and that's where I want us to move on to. Will we ever find this businessman? I want to start off with you, Sammy Obeng, on that. Knowing how Parliament operates in Ghana. It's not as though I'm claiming that the MPs would not be willing to testify on this matter, but do you believe that we'll be able to find this quote-unquote wealthy businessman?
Yes, if we are willing and obedient, we should be able to find this person. I'll come to you on that. Let's hear from Sami on that in terms of how the workings of Parliament is, and if indeed the majority caucus will be willing to give out the details. Sami, help us on that. Can we find the businessman? Yes.
Well, Blessed, this story broke exactly 2 months ago, I think around the 3rd of November. Of course, I read a news item a few weeks ago, which was asking how come after 2 months, even major media houses, including yours truly, have still not been able to even give us indications on who this wealthy businessman could possibly be. We know that these people who perhaps engage in such things have their own contacts and connections and their own influences, even in suppressing news stories and news items such as this. But let's not belittle the efforts by the members of parliament to first of all make this public.
Right.
You know, this meeting could have happened. They could have taken the money, and these things could have been suppressed, and we would not have.
Yeah, but we're not even sure if they rejected.
No, what I'm saying is that
sure.
this matter could have happened, and nobody would have heard about anything because no member of parliament would have been willing to come out to talk about it. So first of all, it is worth to commend the members of parliament who came out to fly the kites, that somebody is trying to bribe them so they are unable to do the work the way they need to do it. The second thing is that the Office of Special Prosecutor is placing the investigation on identifying and perhaps, if there is merit for that, punishing that wealthy businessman. But like Nee indicated, to be able to identify the wealthy businessman, you need to go into that space where the allegations were made, to find witnesses, to be able to give you indications and leads. And that is where I think the liaison with the Office of the Speaker comes in, because, of course, the Office of the Special Prosecutor having full policing powers and what have you, if they need to invite one MP or the other to come and ask, to come and answer the questions on who the businessman was, were you in the meeting, what did he offer, and what have you, they certainly, out of courtesy and out of the recent history that we have had, and of course, steeped in our constitution, need to engage with the Right Honourable Speaker for that to happen. But I personally think that if we are committed to this process, we'll be able to find some leads. I don't think that it should be a secret that we will not be able to identify that businessman who stormed Parliament, that the majority leader of Parliament acknowledges that he stormed Parliament, that a member of Parliament at least acknowledges that he stormed Parliament and met with a group of MPs. The first thing is to identify the businessman, and then to be able to identify the motive, and then to be able to identify whether, it was an act of bribery, wanting to pursue the situation and all of that. I think that the Special Prosecutor's Office is clothed with the powers to be able to do this. But the difference between whether this would find any success or not would depend on whether you in the media, myself in civil society, the general public will not look away while these things go on, but will continue to ensure that this particular matter remains on the agenda, so that we will not have an issue of civil society, including the media, stopping to talk about this matter because it's a case of a news item that is being suppressed. And so it is exciting that the Office of Special Prosecutor has indicated it in its report. At least we have a formal document to be able to show that, sir, you promised us at the end of 2022 that this is under investigation. Where are we by mid-year 2023? Remember that the office also is required to present regular reports, just like what it had actually presented. And so in the subsequent reports, we certainly expect that they will be able to let us know whether this investigation has moved from where it's currently categorized as an issue that they have just commenced the investigation into a closed case, or into a case that prosecution has begun and what have you. So the vigilance... Let me play the devil's
advocate here. I mean, someone would say, what's the big deal? He attempted bribery. He was not successful after all. That ends it, right?
Well, Nee explained to you how, an attempted bribery, is perhaps on the same pedestal with successful bribery, let alone attempting to bribe a public official, a representative of the people, or a group of representatives of the people from taking a certain decision that they are supposed to take in the national interest. Think about it. Think about what will happen if these things do not get checked, when we know that businessmen then can attempt to bribe or succeed in bribing parliamentarians to pass laws that will not be in the interest of Ghana. Think about it. If business people can be able to bribe parliamentarians so that they, pass loan agreements or tax waivers or whatever remains within their power to be able to do, simply because some of these things go unchecked. It's a very, very serious issue. The role of parliamentarians are very sensitive, and we know how state capture by business people, wealthy business people, can actually lead to the messy situation that we found in countries across the world. And we don't think that we want to, reduce the Ghana parliament to a situation where wealthy business people would sit outside of parliament, but will be the ones that are controlling the kinds of decisions that gets taken in the hallowed chamber of parliament.
Well, and gentlemen, let's focus on the special prosecutor himself. Nneɛma Addy, let me bring you in at this point. Do you feel that, given the track record of Kissi Ejabing, he has the balls, quote unquote, to deal with this matter? It involves potentially over 100 members of parliament and has some, of course, direct bearing on the ruling party, the governing New Patriotic Party. That's not going to be an easy task for him, you agree?
I mean, definitely it's going to be a daunting task. But for me, he bringing it out is the first sign of seeking solutions to it. Because if he did not bring them out, then you have everything to say that he's probably covering the sins of people in government, or he's probably covering the sins of his bosses, if you like. But to have brought it out is half the problem solved. So for me, I want to praise him for that as number one. Number two, we have to go beyond that. Okay? My worry now is I was reading the episode of Matiamidu.
Right.
And I don't want us, you see, I don't want a seeming thing, or I don't want to say that the prophecies or otherwise the manifestations of Matiamidu is being repeated. Because when he presented that episode, that report, what are sometimes called a thesis on the Ejapa deal, he said that he has given it to Rawlings. Rawlings had discussed it to, and may so rest in peace, he had discussed it with the president. And the president was not happy that Martin Amidu, has mentioned it to former President Rawlings. Okay? And we saw what happened. And he's saying that he stepped out because he said he found himself in what? In a bee of corruption. And in that position, what can you do? It's just like you're playing with a what do you call it? With a spider in its web. I mean, the spider has mastered its web so much that you cannot play with it.
And neither, so precisely why I'm asking the question. Precisely why I'm asking the question. Do you feel that Kissi Ejabing will be able to hold on with this case and push it through?
I mean, Kissi Ejabing has done what he has to do by first principle to make the corruption known and made public, and has given it or is inviting the relevant institutions to help him do it. So he has done the first principle, which I'm very happy with. If those institutions does not help, then that becomes the other thing. And I think that the onus lies on the president, who is the first gentleman of the country, to ensure that this corruption is nipped in the bud, that this investigation is seen to the bottom of it. I mean, we saw Mr. Dubois being asked to step aside. We want to see that same punishment in all these corruptions that have been mentioned. That let us not forget that bribery or a completed bribery, the punishment for both are identical. So once it has come out, once it is made manifest, once the report has brought it and mentioned institutions and mentioned individuals, I think that the onus is on our president. And for me, I'll lay it squarely at his door to ensure that these issues are not left as they are. Other than that, we're building a very bad country.
Nneɛma Addy, I'm grateful. And for you, Sami, as we wrap up, what's your expectation from the office of the Speaker, briefly as we wrap up?
Well, Blessed, again, let's ensure that we keep the focus on the fact that it is a wealthy businessman who has attempted to bribe members of parliament who is being investigated, so that we do not fall into the trap of a country where usually we get the politicians involved, and then because of politics, the issue gets messed up. If indeed there was a wealthy businessman who attempted to bribe members of parliament from taking a decision that they needed to take as part of their legitimate responsibilities, he needs to be singled out, or he or she needs to be, well, they said it's a businessman, so he needs to be singled out, certainly, and the necessary punishment that needs to be meted out, or the investigations and the necessary prosecution that needs to be done gets done. I expect that the Speaker's office would actually collaborate with the Office of the Special Prosecutor on this, because it is about somebody who tried to do something untoward with members of parliament. Members of parliament, out of their own volition, came out to actually voice this out to the public, and so they must be seen to going through the entire process right through to the end. And we'll look forward to following through.
How about the Privileges Committee itself? Any option?
Well, I don't really think that. I really don't think that the Privileges Committee comes in here with this particular situation. I think that bribery is crime. Attempted bribery is crime.
Right.
The Office of the Special Prosecutor is that office closed enough to be able to investigate this? So far as I'm concerned, with my limited understanding of the law, yes, it is closed with the power to be able to do that, and it must be supported to do its work. I'm
grateful. Samuel being Executive Director for the Parliamentary Network Africa. Also to Ni Ama Adi with the Center for Social Justice this afternoon. Former Director of the Ghana Health Service, Dr. Ajimambudu Akosa, wants government to set up a supervisory body that will help oversee the activities of medical practitioners to avoid the friction between medical doctors and nurses. His comments come on the back of the suspension of the NSS Ashanti Regional Director, Alex Opoku Mensah, for 2 months without pay for hurling verbal insults on a nurse who had altercations with his daughter. A doctor, of course, who is now famed for that incident that occurred at the Mensah Government Hospital. We'll hear from Dr. Ajimambudu Akosa shortly. But first, let's listen to excerpts of let's bring you just excerpts of that statement released by the committee that was set up so we can get an understanding of what it is that the National Service Secretariat is doing in respect of this matter. And it reads that kindly refer to our letter with reference, and then the letter goes on to indicate that in respect of the incident which occurred between your good self and a nurse at the Mensah Government Hospital on Sunday, the 27th of November 2022, which led to the directive of management suspending you for a committee of inquiry investigations into the matter. Now, the indication we're getting is that, and this is from the letter, I'm just quoting, that I wish to inform you that the committee has completed its assignment and submitted the report to management, a copy of which is hereby enclosed for your attention. At its sitting on Wednesday, the 21st of December 2022, the board, after extensively deliberating on the committee's report, unanimously adopted the recommendations proffered by the committee on the basis that we're about to see. So these are the points to note. That first of all, you're suspended for 2 calendar months without pay. There's also the case that after the suspension, you are to resort to the head office to work under supervision, and then within 7 days upon receipt of this notice, the embattled director is also being issued he's expected to issue an official apology to the National Service Scheme for bringing the name of the scheme into disrepute. So beyond that as well, this directive, as we know, is taking immediate effect. This letter will now be going to the Ashanti Regional Director, and once he receives that, in view of this development, he's been invited to the head office for a meeting on Wednesday, which obviously transpired already. So he is now serving the terms of this directive, which have been made public now by the National Service Secretariat. But earlier, we know that the Ghana registered nurses were making some demands. We can now hear, first of all, from the former director of the Ghana Health Service, Dr. Ajimambudu Akosa, who is pushing for government to set in some regulatory body that will check the activities of medical practitioners.
I think it is important that all health professionals appreciate the fact that it is a multidisciplinary team, each holding its own and contributing to the ultimate health of the people. It is important that everybody accepts and knows their limitation in terms of their professional work. I think for me, this is the basic paradigm. If you are a professional, you know the limit to your training and expertise, and you know when to pass on. And even within a set professional grouping, that is why there are seniors, there are consultants, there are subspecialists, and so on and so forth. I think one of the difficulties is that in this country, there is lack of supervision. There's lack of supervision of all professional groupings. And it has allowed people to attempt to do what they like. And in essence, to go beyond what their capacity and capability permits them. And that is why this friction continues. Because I've worked in the UK, I know what happens there. There is no difficulty. Everybody, every professional group knows what they do, and they do it very well. And in the end, the patient gets better. We haven't gotten to that stage yet. And I want to implore all health professionals that we are in a new year. Let all of us pace back one moment, reflect on our training, on our capacity, on our capability, and know that we work as a team, a harmonious team, for the benefit of the patient, for the benefit of society, and for the benefit of this country, Ghana.
Well, so that's the root cause of the problem, I guess. But what is the suggestion from the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association? I want to bring in now David Tinkranchum, who's General Secretary of that group. Thank you, sir, for spending some time with us. Happy New Year as well. So I guess you're starting off the year reconciling with even the embattled Ashanti Regional Director of the NSS, I believe. Are you giving him a chance now?
Right. Happy New Year to you and your viewers. Of course, why not? We believe that we are all human beings. We err at one point in life, and we've seen the recommendations that have been laid out by the committee that was constituted to look into the matter under dispute. And I must say that we are very satisfied. We think that although we're asking for a total dismissal of same, but having heard that he showed or he demonstrated remorse before the committee, we should move on. After all, we're not just asking him to go home and waste away, but if he could be redeployed to where he could exert that kind of energy in a positive way, right, that would be appropriate.
Okay, and now in the letter, we know that he's to officially apologize to the nurses. Do you have any information if that has been done?
Unfortunately, I did not cite that in the letter. It appears as though he's rather supposed to render unqualified apology to the institution that he's worked with. And we felt that it would have been appropriate if same had been extended to the nursing profession. But be it as it may, we think we are okay. Life should go on.
Yeah.
And Ghana should have peace of mind.
Right. The last time we spoke, you indicated to us that the nurse in question had been transferred or relocated for safety purposes. What's going to be the future of that nurse in question? Are you working out some transfer plans for her, or what's going to happen?
Sure, that will definitely depends on the recommendations of the clinical psychologist. If he goes ahead to recommend that based on his own assessment, the lady will not be in a better position to work in Malaysia Hospital, we will certainly follow through due process and get him off the place. But for now, we are yet to receive the recommendations.
And it's good that and it's good that we're having this conversation, because you just listened to Professor Ajiman Bedu and of course make that point that this is the time that we need regulation. Of course, a body that will try and check the friction between doctors and nurses. Is that the case? Do you usually find that happening in our public hospitals?
Well, I don't know whether we actually need a regulatory body, because all these professional groupings have their own regulatory body and their code of conduct, and that's expected of practitioners. Maybe what we should look at is how to be able to train, as part of the orientation of newly qualified doctors or nurses. We should be able to train them, for them to understand the nuances of working within a multidisciplinary health team as we have it. Of course, from time to time, you can have these frictions, but we are able to resolve it in our own way. It shouldn't escalate. And mind you, as far as I'm concerned, doctors and nurses don't have any problem. We are working assiduously well, because at the center of all these confusion and whatever is the patient, who is our prime concern. So we should be able to bury our hatchets.
Yeah, but it appears that what's missing is that synergy between, and not just, and let's not be fixated on doctors and nurses, but other health groupings as well. Don't you feel that there's a coordinating mechanism that's missing, which is not present?
I agree perfectly with that. And as Professor said, we need to be able to work together. Oh, I never knew my brother was on the call. Happy New Year, Dr. Titus. And congratulations on your PhD. So, yes.
Thank you. And same to you, David.
Thank you, my brother. We need to work in such a harmonious way, so that we can, change the narrative and improve, if you like, health outcomes. And I'm for that. I'm for any form of reform that will bring that kind of synergistic way of working, or any type of relationship that will foster unity and in among health professionals.
And since you've announced this presence, I just want to welcome Dr. Titus Bayub, who's the General Secretary for the Ghana Medical Association. Happy New Year. Congratulations as well. So let's get off with a conversation. Just before we talk about the travel advisory on coronavirus and what's happening in China, I just want you to also touch on this recommendation coming through from Professor Bedu, on the issue about getting a regulatory body that will check the friction between nurses and doctors and other health professionals as well. It's coming at a time, of course, when the National Service Secretariat is also making some recommendations on what happened. Have you also, as the Ghana Medical Association, carried out your independent assessment? And what do you have to say about the recommendations that have been made now?
All right, good afternoon, and good afternoon to your viewers, and good afternoon to my colleague, David. And let me use the opportunity to just quickly congratulate all doctors in Ghana for the 65th anniversary of the establishment of the Ghana Medical Association. I think it was at that event that Professor Bedu Akosa made this recommendation. And indeed, the GMA is really happy to work with all other healthcare workers, and we have been at the forefront of trying to build a healthcare team. As was mentioned, it's been shown in some parts of the world that to provide health for one patient, you need about 65 different healthcare professionals to be able to come together and provide just one patient with a complete rounded care. So one person cannot do it. And we support every call of us uniting and coming together. And so anything that seems to bring that. But I should just add that I think we work together a lot. And the narrative that seems to suggest that there's a lot of friction between us is not exactly true. No doctor can work without a nurse, without a pharmacy, without a lab person. And the reverse is true for all the other healthcare workers. So that teamwork is critical. And we will support anything that furthers that and then enhances it better.
How do you make the public understand this? Because, for instance, in the case of the NSS director, I guess if you were to be aware of the procedure, the practices in terms of how you go about your duties, incident may never have happened. So how are you working closely with GRNMA and other groupings just to intensify education on this matter?
Well, so education first has to be internal to our own members. So we appreciate that we work in an environment, a work environment that we have to tolerate each other, and that you need that complete team to be able to provide care. And I think we are working at that. At the national level, the leadership collaborate a lot. You have seen us issue joint statements as healthcare unions on several matters. And there are a lot of programs we do that it's all of us together as a team. Now, to the general public, I mean, as it is, it's unfortunate, but usually the media and other people have been interested in this one or two sensational case. That incident was a very unfortunate thing, and it does not speak to the generality of the relationship. And in the midst of that incident that happened, the communication that was going forth between us at the national leadership level was significant. So you will notice, for instance, that the GMA publicly never spoke on that issue because we were trying to do the background dialogue just to make sure that things are settled in an amicable way so that it's not as though nurses are against doctors. And that was the posture of the GMA in that particular event. I think that we have to continue to collaborate and continue to let the public appreciate that when you get to the healthcare setting, it's a teamwork. Very often than not, when things don't go well, people might blame a nurse, but the actual problem may not even come from a nurse. They come from another cadre of healthcare person, but because they interface more with the nurse may be the person to be blamed. The doctor holds ultimate responsibility for a patient. If things go wrong and they are suing the hospital, they'll probably sue the doctor. But when you go into detail, you may realize that there are other team members who might have played roles that may even lead to that. So it just tells us how intricate this relationship is. And we really are mindful of that. And we are as strong as the weakest member of this healthcare team. It's the reason why we must build each other's capacity to make sure that quality of care is improved.
Interesting points there. And David, I'm just interested in the directive to your members going forward, knowing that NSS has brought this matter to a conclusive end and that you have to going forward, try as much as possible to get your members to adjust and to meet some standard practices and procedures. What directive are you giving to members across the country? Kindly unmute for me, David, so I can hear your point. Yeah.
Sorry.
Right.
So yes, I mean, only to tell our people that, look, we work together, and in such a multidisciplinary team of health professionals, you are likely to encounter one difficulty or the other, and they should be able to respect each other and do what is necessary. I hope you understand, because somebody will by all means step on the other person's toe, especially in a complex team like that, right? And we should be able to tolerate each other and extend such respect to each other professional, not necessarily doctors and the rest of the healthcare team, so that we can work together. As I said, at the center of all these interactions is the patient who needs to, get well in terms of whatever chief complaint that the person presented. So we are very mindful of this, and our people are going to work assiduously with everybody so that we will have some peace of mind to go about our normal duties.
Gentlemen, I want you to stay on for me because the year is going to be very busy for you. There are cases of COVID-19 that we're hearing of, and that obviously will have something to do with your group as well, because what we know is that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration is warning against traveling to China for business or leisure in the wake of the resurgence of the COVID-19 infections in the Asian country. The press release that we have now, and you have that on your screens, gives a clear indication that, of course, Ghana has stated its position on this matter. I'll just read portions of that to you. It indicates that in view of the COVID-19 situation in China, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration wishes to advise the general public to take necessary precautions when traveling to China as much as possible. Only essential travel should be undertaken until further notice. Then, furthermore, government has decided that with effect from Friday, the 6th of January 2023, all persons traveling from China to Ghana will now have to produce a 48-hour negative PCR test and undergo some mandatory antigen testing at the point of entry, free of charge until further notice. So that's the directive coming through from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration. Let me start off with you, Dr. Titus Bayo. The Ghana Medical Association, the Ghana Health Service, together with KIA, have revised the protocols at the airport. What's the concern of the Medical Association going into this wave of infections again, starting from China?
All right. I think the first thing will be to advise the Ghanaian public, the traveling public, to try and adhere to these advice and directives from both institutions, the Ghana Health Service and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. There is a real challenge. There is a data that suggests that the cases are increasing in China. And as a country, we have some risk because our vaccine uptake rate is not 100%. We've been trying to improve this, and we hope that it will improve. Until such a time, we would advise that people really, really listen to this advice. What is the science behind this? There is COVID in Ghana as we speak. Right. So it's not like we are trying to prevent COVID from coming into Ghana in totality. But we are trying to minimize the re-importation of this. You can't have a foolproof system, but at least you can minimize it. So to the extent that we have seen the wave that is going on in China, if you don't really need to travel there, I don't think you should go. And then if this advice, travel advice, is complementary to the one issued by the Ghana Health Service, because and the KIA, if you look at the requirement for people coming from China, it's a bit stiffer. They have to produce a negative PCR test within 48 hours. There is mandatory testing for unvaccinated persons and all of that, just to make sure that we minimize. The emphasis is minimized. You cannot eliminate completely that we will not re-import, but just to minimize. As long as people are still moving up and down, the risk of transmission of this virus across borders is real. And coming along with that risk will be different variants that may come up. And if you have a susceptible population where a significant proportion of the population remains unvaccinated, then you ought to be careful. So I think it's a precautionary measure, and I would ask that the system, all of us support it. The testing, for instance, is free of charge if you come in. So there is no burden even on the traveler that is being tested. But at least if you can identify people and isolate them, then we'll minimize the spread within the community. So it's very commendable, and the Medical Association commends it.
There are questions as to the differences and nuances in the antigen PCR 48-hour test. What's the technical explanation to that?
Okay, so the antigen test will be testing for the viral antigens or response to the virus, which will mean that if you get the virus and you have not produced, we will need to test the antigen of the virus. The PCR is the most superior, but depending on how the test is organized, the antigen test is also very, 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 very useful if it is organized in a particular way. We have a lateral flow testing system, and then we have the on-the-spot antigen test, which are the rapid antigen tests. So depending on what is being done, it is effective to be able to identify people who are carrying this virus. The PCR is as effective when, and the reason why they place a cap of 48 hours positive PCR, because if you did a PCR very long time ago, it's no longer very relevant. And so it is very useful within that short period for us to know whether currently you have an active infection or not. Somebody may have an infection, but the antigen test may also still be negative. So it's a multiplicity of factors just to make sure that we minimize to the barest minimum the risk of reimportation.
But are you confident? Are you confident of the measures?
Oh, I'm very confident of the measures. I think for now, per the science available, these are the most appropriate measures that can be instituted. We couldn't have gone for anything more or less. But I do know that epidemiologists, biologists, and experts are reviewing this situation And when it becomes necessary, we would revise the terms. I know people from the Asian countries are complaining of discrimination when the West decided to introduce this kind of travel restrictions. But really, you look at your population and you take the decisions that best suits your population. If we had a country that is 100% vaccinated, we could have decided to act otherwise. But looking at our vaccine uptake rates, I think the best decision has been made for the country as of now.
The very final question I would want to ask you would be about the nose mask, but let me hear from David. David, you are health workers as well. As nurses, you'll be dealing with patients. What's your concern knowing that, of course, you have to be on guard in the wake of another wave of infection that's rising from China?
Right, you know, I mean, health workers generally, and nurses and midwives in particular, bear the brunt of some of these things when it's rear its ugly heads. And the increased positivity tests among travelers from China justifies whatever measures that are being put in place currently by Ghana Health Service, and I need to commend them. So what we need to do is that locally we need to also try and reignite the various preventive measures that helped us to deal with the disease. So measures that were not to the benefits of our people should be upheld. As far as I'm concerned, the Asian people can say whatever they want, but looking at, as Dr. Titus alluded to, our level of vaccination is very low. So we need to encourage our people to also take the vaccination seriously. I mean, by the grace of God, we have availability of the vaccines, and they should try as much as possible to get vaccinated. Those who are partially vaccinated must get fully vaccinated, and those who are even fully vaccinated must go on to grab their booster if need be. And as I said, the preventive measures, distance, social distancing, washing of hands, and all those things must be started now. We shouldn't wait until the disease starts spreading. That's what I would say for now.
Should we be going back to the use of the nose mask? I'll start off with you, David.
Well, I think that we have experts, and as they review the situation on the ground, they might tighten the measures as may deem fit. So for now, individually, we can decide to use it. I use the nose mask. When I'm moving into the crowd, I use the nose mask. So I think the responsibility is on individuals now. So I don't know whether it ought to be enforced at this stage, but if you want to prevent your family from infection, then you need to do that. So yeah, perhaps individuals must take up their own responsibility.
Safety first.
In their own lands.
David Tinkran-Chum, I'm grateful for your time here on The Pulse. Let me wrap up with you, Dr. Titus Bale, on the use of the nose mask. Of course, we had an executive instrument enforcing that. Many say we've gone past it, so no need to go back to the use of the nose mask. What's your view on that?
That it should be individualized as of now, based on the current prevalence of the disease. For instance, within the hospitals, we use them routinely. Why? Because we have very vulnerable patients who, if they are unvaccinated and get this infection, could take them to a very undesirable level. And so people with underlying medical conditions that could worsen their state should use a nose mask. If you are unvaccinated, first thing is get a jab and protect yourself. Secondly, anybody vaccinated or unvaccinated, if you are having signs of respiratory tract infection, it is still recommended to use a nose mask. I think that should be it for now. When we get to a point, because we already have community spread of this virus and the current burden is not so much, making it mandatory with an executive instrument now may not be necessary.
And the very last segment of our conversation, it may be premature, but of course it's the start of a new year. You are asking for a pay rise, and then we know your demands as well on the labor front. Are you back to those issues this year?
Yes, I mean, there were negotiations that stopped at some point, and then those negotiations need to resume. We still have not concluded negotiation on the base pay, which should have been done last year. I think that has to be done. And we are hoping that our employer, even now, more necessary now than ever, would consider the current economic conditions that we are all in and motivate the workforce to be able to increase productivity to get us out of this economic situation that we find ourselves. We have just one way out: to work harder as Ghanaians to increase our local productivity, and hopefully we are able to work our way through the current economic predicament. And that can only happen when we have a very motivated workforce. So I think government should be looking at it that way, rather than that is an increase in the wage bill. If that increase is matched with productivity,
right,
it is the right way to go. Thank you.
I know what that means as a leader of a labor union, but of course we'll wait to see if the fire is turned on. We'll definitely be experiencing that together.
Yeah, but I can't go without once more just telling all doctors in Ghana, it is our day. The 4th of January 1958 was when the Ghana Medical Association was founded as the foremost professional organization in this country, and was inaugurated by His Excellency, the President, Prime Minister then, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. So congratulations to all doctors. It is our day. We would work harder, and hopefully next year we have just launched an award scheme, and doctors who have given up their very best will be rewarded next year. So let's all give up our best. Soon you'll be noticed and you'll be rewarded. Thank you.
And I'm grateful to you, Dr. Titus Bayo, General Secretary of the Ghana Medical Association, and to David Tinkranchum of the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association. David, you want to say a few words to the doctors? It's their day.
I think it would be right to extend my congratulations to them. It's not easy. 65 years of nation building, they've contributed immensely to the healthcare delivery of this country, and they deserve all the accolades. But don't worry, they should consult us. We started our award scheme about 3 years ago. We'll be able to help them how to streamline the scheme. All right.
Right, and I'm grateful, gentlemen. Thank you. Happy New Year to you all, and we'll see you again here on The Pulse. And you're welcome back to The Pulse. This afternoon, what we do know is that the Lands and Natural Resources Minister, Samuel Abu-Jinapor, is in the Western region. The minister is currently actually at Appiatse in the Western region to inspect progress on the new structures for residents after their houses were flattened by the explosion. Of course, he will also be meeting with residents and have interactions with them. And we know that 13 people were killed and dozens were injured on January 20 when a truck loaded with mining explosive detonated. Well, my colleague Maxwell Agbagba is joining us live from there. We'll be getting the latest from him, as we know the minister will also be touring some mining sites. But for now, here's Barbara Oteng, the board chair for the Minerals Commission, addressing the community there.
Any of them are na ye wojidi say ansana afi beko ewiye no na ye nyina ye koye dai foforo no mu ye man foforo no mu ana ai iti ene de eye nije nko a me nkasa bebre pani na nkasa wo ha ono nso ede nia odi free Nana Adodankwa Ekufuado ho bae no obebo ya amane na ansana metina ase no nia me pese meka ene say asem yi si ye no yede ejumedie no hye empenimfo bi nsa enkakra omo ano mo hwe ye so omo che aduane mayen omo say bebi a mo nkodanie bebi ankwala bedwai nie bebi a basa ebe fa nkwala chese nia ebe ma ya sitire mu aye papa mayen no empenimfo bi ene ede hye omo nsa omo nso omo edijuma pa ede amayen ebi ye digital PR ya ojina he ai big quash wa bo ejuma pa ebi ye not more director big abe ono so wa bo ejuma pa ebi ye ni deputy Louis ono so wa ye ejuma iti omo team na omo de ye ejuma ni na no ele ni jina ha ye di afi ni say Minerals Commission ye see ye ma omo 10,000 Ghana cedis na ya de bomb abaso say omo ye team
moment
team to medie share omonsa
somebody here
omon share Appiatse mine so ebra ye toto nyeme omonso omo aye jumaden ama bibia akọ kama inti team amu ya sa ejuma no yada wa si bebre na mo bi kakra say ya ba ye say Appiatse my mumbaje. Obi aba say Appiatse my mumbaje. Nanso omo show so no. I say ye kai omo na ya da omo ase. Nti me gyina mineral commission anemu me da omo ase. Say omo so ahwe Appiatse my ma eso. Me da ma ase bebre. Nyame hia ye nyina.
Nyame hia odedu. Nyame hia. 10,000 ne buy a hunting moment them.
So we're back here in Appiatse. Remember that in January last year, when the explosion happened, we had stories of horror, stories of how some of the community people here lost all that they labored for. Today, the minister is here going to engage the people, the residents. He'll be speaking shortly. But even before he got here, he visited the site of the construction of the new community. There he was taken around by the project contractors who gave him updates and told him that they are expectant and optimistic that the project will be done latest in June this year. So we are told that in June this year, the project should be, completed. The contractors who've been speaking to us tell us that the project is about 30.1% complete, and they are hoping that by June it will be done. But we have some of the residents who are here today who are excited to see the Minister of Lands and Natural Resources and his delegation, here. In some minutes, we'll be hearing from the minister. He'll be addressing the residents here. We hear what he has to tell them. But already we've seen some bags of rice, some cooking rice, also here that will be presented to the people to provide some kind of relief, for them. So for the people here, it's an important, occasion for them, especially also because we just celebrated Christmas and then the New Year. Many of them were raising concerns about the untold hardship that's been brought onto them as a result of, the explosion. They are hoping that the authorities and the contractors will be able to reach the June deadline, timeline that they have given them so they can move into the new houses that have been constructed for them. Right now, though, is the chief who's speaking. Let's hear the chief who's speaking right now, who's addressing the crowd here right now.
SHS school no to see a binum beko tertiary na sika ben ne ye de behwe wo ye besre aban no say ye coffers na wo ha na de emu aye dry kura ye yi ho hwe yi enti ye besre aban say ye coffers na wo ha no aban fe sika kakra amatu maye na chairman omwa ma ayarefo no ntiapo na wo ma beko tertiary no so Ononso na dauroma ontumemwa ma Appiatse man yemfa yentuma pemfra masem ni medamasi bebre.
From one of the from the chief here of the Port Divisional chief, just to explain briefly what he's been talking about. He says that their funds have actually run out and they're appealing to government, to support them and then make sure that they are liquidated. He says that the funds that was created, now they do not have anything, and that's the major appeal he's making to the government delegation, that is here today at Appiatse. He says they need the money, they need resources, and they need a lot more relief items to help the people cope because times are getting very difficult, for them. He says that there's a serious expectation that the visits of the minister will help to mitigate, the situation here at Appiatse. Now the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources is going to speak. Let's hear from him.
Yo, Nana, Honorable Deputy Minister, former Member of Parliament and Chairperson of Minerals Commission, Honorable Barbara Tintesi, municipal chief executive, Appiatse ban panifo a mo ha nyina, assemblyman, me ma menom panifo a mo Appiatse nyina, de di kan ye chia mo bebre. Ana ye da mo aseso se mo nya kwan anana afura no ntoma kama ana ho ayefese na Appiatse fo nyina mo ba be hia se na mo hia yi na mo be je awa tu ni ani je sa maba ha mpre bebre na metima aka se ene na maba be hu se Appiatse fo mo ni age sonko pa ene so ye de aseda kese ene ema nyankopon e fa se asema atoye na se ne ye nyina ye nim no truenchem kese ya eto Appiatse no ebedru ye omampanyi akufo adoni na aban ya ndada asem ni si ya ade anche ana omampanyi esuma na badi ekire Dr. Mamadou Bawumia no no ade na besi ha kakra bi a na yese aban ye nadmo ne de yese de ba bebo nyina ye de bae mpense mu nyina so na yese ye nyina no ye ni nyina sebi ba bi yese de asem no to no ye de to ho kama ade ba kutitiru na wadawma ana eya di hiasem kese ti e behwe na ye di hu djuma ene sebe mukuru ana motimu a sa tue nchemi baaye no ekuro ni nyina sebe ekuro ni nyina ehwetere e ba afom na o mampanyi hye mobo so obehwe se sa ekuro no ye be sa esikuro no foforo na enye sa abo no kwa no hye o sa so hye Ghana fo bo se obehwe am ye esikuro no se kuro no ba be ye kra behwe na ye ko yenim eman no emia wo ye man mu ha nkuransi ye wo ye man mu ha no ye ba be si ekuro ho a na se ye ba be chichiri kuro a ya hwe Appiatse kuro iso ni ya chichiri kuro no na onu me be ya adwen se ye nkurasi bebre sebe ukọ ho asebi previous ho ajane abia kra ebi ni ho ensu a ebe nom na ya asem enkoda soro se ye be ko school a ye be sa fi ekurasi no ni anante ka kwan ho saa totin akoba wi no ho ansa na yakọ school ayasa BSM agire ekọ ekirekire ansi de nya ayasa nanso ko abrochiri a enti saa ekuro bi asa ye ekurasi o broni be fe no the basic amenities the basic necessities of life eno de ayaban ahye de se obekekire ama ekurasi bia ba bi ankora be ko school ba bi ebedi dwa be kanea ensuo agane abia sanitation sa no mani nyina sebe ba bi amanfo kora atimi kwotenase agi o mahome keke ese aban hihye ni nyina eno na ye ya amamo e wa Appiatse reconstruction na ye dwumadi aye de eno na ye ya amamo na meso asebe o mampanyi di adwuma ne hye me nsa no me hye mo bose brano ese me ba na be hwe se ni adwumadi ne tie na me di mani be hwe na me hu sampa ebo a o mampanyi hye mo no eni dwumadi a o mampanyi se obehwe am ye di amamo no ye di ni pepepe me ba Yesu nyame se enka ne kure mani asopa mani so agi enam se adwuma sebi produce yes ye di asu enim se ye be di no se adwumadie no eno na omudi se adwumadie ni pepepe broni be ka se they are even slightly ahead of schedule baby ana omo so be dru ne no omapa ho kakra bi na ya hyehye ekuro na ye chichire no into two phases. No phase 1 and phase 2. Near a decan and the baba beka home. Near decan is a benya baby amamo. Now said the modi mutiato. And then a year core part of the reconstruction and redevelopment. And a phase 2, other amenities, normal baby beka home, including a monument, baby a baby where the back kai said your mom or monkwa. Any at Renchem na a see no. Na amanfo ba ho a omoso abie baby ahe say asem say esi wo hanom na phase 1 no making 124 housing units from 2-bedroom to 7-bedroom housing units ekoso ho sesia o ma sha ase me ne mo kese mo to foundation for 106 no ebi kura du lentil level mo amukọ abobehu yes aso see kindergarten and ye primary school honom and ye be si edwa baby a me ma menom so be didwa ni nyina ye si urban roads for aba omu yi akwan no omodu culvert to ho sana electricity company of Ghana kanea beba ho saa so na community water and sanitation authority omoso beba be ye nsuo ewo ho a ekura na mo ba akotena mu no sebe nsuo be ho no ansa na ye ba be first two no ye be ye kura ba be si ahimfie ama nana ba bi anana so betena ewo kronim e be ye ahimfie ama Appiatse ya hihye ni nyina fefefe a ye di djuma no na Nyankopon ye adoma afi be ko na wieye no na ye wie bibia kama ye yi akwan no ye si adan no ya ye school ya ye si dwa ejom wo ho ya ye nsuo aba ho bibia aba ho na ye wie no na mampania kasa aba Appiatse ha na ono aba bibia no amamu na makotena mu kromu na aye fefefe na bibia ye kama saa so biem ana me pese e be de to monim se eto na ye de to amanfo diska kakra gumu no ye si fie ni edan kro ni wie sika bi e be ka bia no ye ne mo be sa atena se ne ye de etie bom ni a fa adwen ekwan ye be fa so a ye betimi e de aboa na sebe me ma me nom ne ye nua no mo ha se djuma bi na mo ankrankra djuma bi na de be so mo ase na mo so metimi de ahwe mo ho abọ mo bra ye be ne kama na aba ni simpesa me dana na asesronko na adi sha ase bedru ne wa kire panyi kwan wa kire kwan kama emmoa bia ese ode maye so no ode saa mo na maye pepepe wa kire se oyo hene ampa eda wase na mi nhira o ade se de so ade atomanim se mo fund na e wa ha no musika na sa no ye konkran ha e be di huduma na se ne ye se di djuma na bibia kama so ye be ya mamo Chese me deputy minister any Appiatse implementation committee there me da omasia adebechi wo hanom me da omoso ase omadi djuma kama saa so na me pesa me ma Appiatse mindful me sremo mamote ase ye me sremo pi yesi nipa ya ade a osaye yi nipa ya ade so abonidin honorable Barbara Otinjesi on sebe anamo a wotu omo ho ene akoniaba wodi wo mo ho no nya akoniaba kotoa wodi akoniaba kese pa edi djuma kese pa so amamo asemi ba ye nyame nchade minerals commission ho on the dano emmo bia ye hia wo ho ene kwan ye so otwa ene djumadi ye so odi na fund to na ye bie ye nye sika gum no djuma wodi na djuma kese pa me pese nana wadaroma mo mbom nsam kese pa ma ono aboba Otinjesi wachire paase omo hodo na mekei yesi ekroi enne echina bosome bia na obisa minisi edru he de na ebetumi aye de aboa na yewie ne ntem emmo bi ese obi di boa no waboa ne fefefe nti yeda na sesu bebre na nne amaba ayese bronya nke ese me ba anse de di bronya na bronya so de January nyina ye bia na meboa ana agya idi ye nya idi enti maba me baya ameba isumene mo former MP na eba nti ono so waso mesisi kama wa bom achidom kama aye ba ye de 25 kg bags of rice 50 bags 50 kg 50 bags de bremo ane de yi pomo sack boxes tomato paste and also 20 cartons tin fish and also 8 cartons fried tall and also 5 cartons and then so 20 cartons and then sade bomo ade aka ho a mode be ka ho a mode be di bronya and also yede bomo ade aka ho eno 15,000 Ghana cedis, 150 million old Ghana cedis. And the idea can say, Monfo di bronya. Na bibia enye kama. Na making Appiatse for. Someone was a bind on pa. Someone was a. To me, hey. Me Nana Wadaroma. May a Damango MP. Damango for me na me yo mo mrese bedwani wo ho. Me a member of Parliament for Damango. Na senya ye na mo nkitawudie na kwa edo kese abeda me ne mu ntemu no. Me ba besre honorable Babrotin Jesi na watwe ne ho na me ma be MP wo Appiatse hanom. Me free Damango be MP wo ha. Enti me na ma say nyame nhia mo. So Nana, we thank you so very much. And we are very happy that today we are in the Appiatse community to inspect the progress of work on the reconstruction of the Appiatse community. And I must say that I'm very happy and excited about the progress of work. The work is on schedule, and God willing, all things being equal, by the end of this year, we will finish phase 1 of the Appiatse reconstruction community. And that will enable us resettle the displaced people of Appiatse. It is very impressive, and I want to thank the president and his government and all the members of the Appiatse reconstruction implementation team for the excellent work done so far. We are building a model community, building a community which will become a model for other rural communities in our country. And indeed, what has happened in the Appiatse community is a clear testimony that we have a government that walks the talk. Not a government of talk, but a government of action and a government of walking the talk and making sure that all the commitments we make, we keep to the commitment. We are fully determined to make sure that we complete this reconstruction and ensure that the people of Appiatse are resettled and resettled properly. It is going to be a climate-friendly community with all the amenities of a modern community: schools, hospital, clinics, community centers, markets, and everything that will make a community a habitable one, with roads and water, sanitation, and everything. And we want to assure Nana and his people that we will work to their satisfaction and make sure that we bring this dream to fruition. I thank you all, Nana. Thank you very much. Bonsam Kasema, Honorable Samuel A. Jinapor, Minister Lands and Natural Resources, for that wonderful show. Monsam boy there, and no more 2 bags crowd. And some boy anyway, Yemreko, but my cow said to me, now you're live. Our Metro TV, JoyNews, and I have so Man FM. Yadamasepa for the support. They want media. Why you be Yanko Ponchamo? Why? Market Yadi Free Strobeba. But the idea do no better suffer Yeniaba Naomi Jetchi. Na wabe bomb pie near the Tumediano Abana. My menace. I don't know in charge of the health post. Momon some.
Amen. Maybe I will be a Catoni a bomb pie. Yada was singing me, I would to me a day in I was so sir. One hour, Sassian, young man. 1 hour, Sassia, now the
Live pictures from the Appiatse community just got by. You heard from the sector minister himself, Samuel Awujinapo, who's in your shots there. Now we know that there's a firm assurance coming through from government, a clear indication that first of all, phase 1 of the project will be complete by, of course, as per what the minister is saying, by the end of this year. That's phase 1 of the project that will be completed. He's also talked about the fact that over 100 units are at various stages of completion. That's the indication we're also getting from the sector minister. We'll be getting much more from Maxwell Agbagba, who's still on the ground with the minister. Of course, a few more questions to the minister. We'll put some further clarity on matters. But this community, as you do recall, suffered that huge explosion somewhere last year. And so now we can cross over back to Maxwell Agbagba, who's still on the grounds for us, monitoring a lot of developments there. He will be getting interactive with the sector minister shortly for us to get some more. We can bring you some live pictures from there as well. But we can also confirm that indeed the minister has donated some items. You have that in your shots now. 15,000 Ghana cedis from the Lands and Natural Resources Ministry, plus some relief items as we are hearing from the sector minister. Then he goes to talk about the development fund that was established for the community. The chief of the area complaining there about how he believes that the government needs to do a lot more in terms of supporting the community. There's an assurance from the sector minister that that would equally be done. We'll bring you some updates as and when we have them from our reporter who's on the grounds for us, Maxwell Agbaba. For now, we know that in over 7 decades of its existence, the Fuvema community in the Anglo constituency has not had electricity for days. Members are now excited that they can now enjoy some basic things like iced water and ice cream, because the MP for the area, the Anglo constituency, has extended electricity to the area. There's more in the following report.
Imagine your life without electricity. How boring and unproductive. Well, Fuveme in the Volta region has been hammered in the last few years by tidal waves. The community is gradually being washed away, but they've also been lacking joy and electricity. Akoli Simon Peter is a unit committee member and has been living in Fuveme for all its 40 years of existence without electricity. Through the efforts of MP for Anglo, Richard Kwame Sepe, he and other members of the community can have access to what some may call basics like iced water and ice cream.
Electricity has changed a lot of situation in our life right now. Because formerly when there is no electricity, we suffer a lot. Some people don't know how we call television. But now when light comes out, a lot of people are seeing movies and everything, even all the things that is going in the country. Some people have not seen the president before, but now when the light comes, they are seeing the president. They don't see the MPs talk in Parliament before, but because of electricity, you see how MPs battle in the Parliament. So electricity has changed a lot. Some people also buy fridge. We are enjoying ice cream and chill water, and chill drink too. So as for me, I'm very happy. Every day, I'm watching movies on TV.
Other residents are hopeful that with electricity being extended to the area, they can have entertainment and improve teaching and learning.
Initially, there was no light over here. So when we want to charge our phone, we normally go Anyangwi, almost 5 kilometers. So sometimes it takes most of our times. And when we go over there, they charge us. And because we overcrowded for charging, sometimes your phone will not charge well. And sometimes due to that, some of us, our phone got missing. But when, luckily through the MP and Honorable Appiatse, now it's reduced our time, their cost, and at the same time, you have changed our life. Because especially like the recently game they are playing, when they are playing game like World Cup, other games, some of us, we are very interested on that. So we have to work our way to Anglaga and other communities that have light. But recently when the lights come, some of us, we just enjoy it to the nearby in our house, and it helps us.
The MP, Richard Kwame Sefe, explains that he did this with the support of Togbi Afede and is calling for more support to extend electricity to other communities in his constituency.
I never thought that a day like this will come where the people of Fuvema will also enjoy electricity, because the place has been cut off as a result of the tidal waves. But thank God, Togbi Afede, the 14th, gave us, we the affected communities, 100,000 Ghana cedis that I decided to use 60,000 out of it to string light from Appiatse, that's the nearest community, to Fuvema, where we are. And when I started, the people were not sure that it will come to fruition. Here we are. We came to do this about a few months ago, and we want to see the impact assessment.
So for many of you who live in metropolitan communities, Accra, Tamale, Kumasi, and Takoradi, electricity is not such a big deal for you. But for communities like this, Appiatse, Fuveme in the Volta region, for over 50 years of their existence, they have not had the opportunity to feel and use electricity. Indeed, some of the basic items that you feel are just basic, are a luxury here. This community and its members cannot dream, cannot see and eat ice cream because some community members have now fridges in their homes which they use to produce some of these things. And the community members are excited. They are grateful to the MP for the community, Honorable Richard Kwame Sepe, who together with the board chair of SAS, Toby Afede, who is also a traditional leader, have been able to extend electricity to these areas. Of course, they are asking for more, like Oliver Twist. They are saying that adjoining communities should also get something so that they can all share in this newfound success. Reporting for Joy News, Kweku Asante, Appiatse for Verme in the Volta region.
Well, and on that note, we say, of course, it's a wrap here on The Pulse. My name is Blessed Sogah. Log on to myjoyonline.com. We have updates on our stories there for you.